What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel for the 7th Ask Me Anything episode of the season. Decided to skip last week and upload something else just to keep things fresh so the series doesn't get too repetitive. I'll probably skip a week here and there throughout the season, but we're back this week, and as always, you guys killed it with the questions. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been setting like goals on videos, and I can't lie, the videos have been performing a lot better. The likes definitely help out a ton to get the video out there more and get it recommended on people's pages, and whenever I set a like goal, you guys always crush it. So let's see if we can hit 1,000 likes on this episode of Ask Me Anything. And as always, if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and start this episode off with the first question from Hatrick Kane, who says, Michael Carcone has 11 goals in 22 games. Why has nobody been talking about this? He's been grinding in the AHL for 7 years and now finally gets a chance to be in the NHL as a 27-year-old. Carcone has definitely been an amazing story for the Coyotes so far this season. It's always nice to see journeymen finally get an opportunity and take that opportunity and run with it at the NHL level. He had a hat trick earlier this season and overall has shown some really nice finishing ability for Arizona, and he's gotten these 11 goals while only playing fourth line minutes. It's not like he's been thrusted into a top 6 role and is playing with the Coyotes' best players. Is it sustainable? Of course not. He's shooting 33%, which is ridiculous, but he's been driving play in the right direction and he's been finishing chances when he gets them. Even if Carcone only scores 9 more goals for the rest of the season, that's still a 20-goal season from a 27-year-old undrafted fourth liner who was playing in the American Hockey League last season, which is obviously a massive boost for the Arizona Coyotes depth. This next question comes from this Asian dude who says, is the race between Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar the best race for the Norris we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years? Both are incredible in all 3 zones, and both are so clearly heads and shoulders above everyone else thus far. I think this is one of the craziest races for the Norris that we've seen maybe ever. Like you mentioned, they're playing fantastic in all 3 zones. It's not like they're just putting up points. Not taking anything away from Erik Karlsson's Norris Trophy winning campaign last year. He put up 100 plus points as a defenseman on an awful Sharks team, but a lot of people criticized the fact that Erik Karlsson was awarded the Norris Trophy because he was not good defensively last season whatsoever, and the Norris Trophy is awarded to the league's most outstanding defenseman. The defensive aspect of the game should obviously play a pretty big factor in who wins the award, not just points. The fact that Karlsson's 100-point season was the first time we saw a defenseman put 100 plus points up in a single season since Brian Leetch in 1992. I think that obviously played a huge role in Carlson winning the Norris because it's just something we hadn't seen in so long. But now you look at what Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes are doing over a quarter of the way through the season. These guys are both on pace for around 120 points, and they've also been very solid defensively for their teams as well. And again, like you mentioned, just fantastic overall in all 3 zones. They're playing incredibly tough minutes, getting tough matchups, and they have both just been absolutely dominant, even if the point production cools off a little bit, which I'm expecting it to from one or both of these guys, but they still should finish with 100 plus points if they stay healthy. It's pretty crazy to think that one of these guys are not going to win the Norris Trophy this season. I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts though. If the season ended today, who do you think would be the Norris Trophy winner, Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes? Moving along now to the next question. This one comes from Vakarainen, who says, who do you think will be the best goaltender in the league in 10 years? And also really appreciate the kind words, and I'm glad you like these kinds of videos. I feel like this is almost impossible to predict. The best goaltenders in the league, it seems to fluctuate so much from season to season, and overall goaltenders are just incredibly unpredictable. I'm going to make a prediction here that some of you may think is a hot take, some of you may not, but I'm going to say the best goaltender in the NHL 10 years from now probably isn't even in the league right now. Maybe somebody like Jesper Wallstedt. I think he has all the tools in the world to be a superstar goaltender. Dustin Wolf is another one that I'd throw his name in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the best goaltender in the league in 10 years. In terms of guys that are in the NHL right now that may be in contention for the best goaltender in the league in 10 years, Jake Ottinger's only 24. Wouldn't be surprised, if at 34 years old, he's still amongst the elite NHL goaltenders. Somebody like Spencer Knight or Devin Levi could pop off in the next 10 years. Really interesting question though, and again, I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts. Who do you feel like is going to be the best goaltender in the NHL 10 years from now? Do you think it's going to be somebody that's in the league right now, or maybe somebody that hasn't even been drafted yet? This next question comes from For You2NV family, who says, I've really liked what I've seen from Monty for the Habs this season. Do you think with his new extension, he will be the starter for the next 5+ seasons? So for those of you who don't know, the Montreal Canadiens signed Samuel Montembeault to a 3-year contract extension with an annual cap hit of $3.15 million. So the Canadiens lock up Montembeault through the 2026-27 season. I don't know about him being Montreal's starter for the next 5+ seasons, but at the very least for the rest of this season and the 3 years after, he's going to be maybe not the starter, but at the very least, in a 1A, 1B tandem type situation. I think this extension for Samuel Montembeault is well deserved. What a waiver claim he has turned out to be for the Habs. His counting stats throughout his tenure with Montreal don't jump out at you, but it's not like Montreal has made things easy on Samuel Montembeault. This is a guy who has faced a lot of shots over the last year and a half, and for the most part has given the Montreal Canadiens rock solid goaltending. He finished last season with over a 16 goals saved above expected. He's currently at 4.65 this season and rocking a 9.10. Like I said, well-deserved contract extension and not bad at all for somebody who the Montreal Canadiens claimed off of waivers for free. The next question we have comes from DeBrinket Carries Fantasy, who says, with McDavid really heating up now in the season, he looks almost better than his old self. Do you think he could save this Oilers team this year, or is it too late? I know the Oilers are on a 4-game win streak right now, and McDavid looks as good as ever, but I'm still kind of in the boat of it may be too little too late. Despite the fact that the Oilers have won 4 straight, they're still 7th place in the Pacific Division. They're going to have to maintain a very strong pace from now till the end of the season to make the playoffs, and I'm just not confident that this team is going to be able to do that. The way they've won over their last 4, I don't think is sustainable. I believe they scored 21 goals in their last 4 games. McDavid is putting up like 4 points a game. Sure, all wins count the same and you get the 2 points, but I don't think that's something that the Edmonton Oilers are going to be able to rely on every game. At some point throughout the season, you're going to need strong defense and good goaltending, and Stuart Skinner has been heating up as of late, but I just find it really hard to ignore what we saw from the Oilers to start the season before this current 4-game win streak. I need to see some consistency from the Oilers and their goaltending over this next month and a half to really make me buy back in and be a believer in this team, and I hope that happens. I want to be a believer in the Oilers. I like to see Canadian teams do well, and I want to see the best players in the league in the playoffs. The league is better off with McDavid and Draisaitl playing in the postseason. The next question we have comes from Sports and Stuff, who says, every Wings fan is hyped for Kane to be here, but realistically, who's he going to be on a line with? And also, really appreciate the kind words. I'm glad you like the videos. For those of you who watched my video on Patrick Kane signing with the Red Wings, you probably know where I stand on this, but for those of you who didn't, I'll give you kind of a quick rundown of my expectations. I don't think Patrick Kane starts the season on a line with Alex DeBrincat. I feel like it would be less than ideal to throw him right into the top 6 immediately, and it's not like you're going to have DeBrincat playing in the bottom 6. I'd like to see Kane probably start in the 3rd line. The Red Wings have some talented players in the bottom 6. It's not like he'd be playing with scrubs. Get maybe 12 to 13 minutes of ice time per game at 5-on-5, but be obviously on the first power play unit, which I think is the area of the game where he can impact it the most for the Red Wings. After the hip resurfacing surgery, even if his skating isn't really there anymore, he's still going to have that unbelievable vision. He's still going to have those fantastic set hands, which will definitely help on the man advantage. I'm really looking forward to when Patrick Kane finally makes his debut, whether that's, tomorrow against the Buffalo Sabres or sometime later this week. The things Patrick Kane has been saying are really positive. He says he feels the best he's felt in years. He's going to be better than last season, and he thinks even the year before that, for that matter, which I feel like is a pretty crazy thing to say because the year before last, Patrick Kane had 92 points in 78 games for the Blackhawks. If the version of Patrick Kane the Red Wings are getting is anything close to the 2021 version of Kane, then yeah, ultimately end goal is I think you have a Larkin, Raymond, and whoever you want to put with them on the top line, and then DeBrincat, Kane, and whoever you want to put with them on the second line. This next question comes from Matthew, who says, given how well Carlson has played for Anaheim, do you think the Ducks' temporary load management of Leo to build him up for the rest of the year will set a precedent for teams in the future to do with their highly coveted prospects? Carlson's been on a college schedule of sorts where he's played consecutive games, has routinely played anywhere from 17 to 21 minutes a night in those outings, and has had ample time to build strength in the weight room during off days for the team and games he misses. The Ducks' plan for Leo was initially criticized by many in hockey media, but it's paid dividends for him individually and for Anaheim whenever he's in the lineup, as he's been a massive difference maker. Curious to hear your thoughts. Really great question, and like you said, this was something that, heading into the season was criticized by a lot of people in hockey media. I feel like the only reason for that is because it's something we really haven't seen teams do, and anytime you see a player or a team trying something different that we haven't really seen and doing something that's kind of unorthodox and isn't just your run-in-the-mill typical way of doing things, it's going to be criticized, it's going to have its doubters, but it's hard to argue with results. And at this point in the season, when Leo Carlson's been in the lineup, he has been one of the best rookies in the NHL. He's been one of the Ducks' best forwards, and I definitely think with how well this has worked, it could certainly influence teams in the future to take this approach with their high draft picks, especially teams in a similar situation to the Ducks, where Anaheim's goal this season wasn't to make the playoffs. If that was the goal with how well Carlson is playing, they'd probably have him in the lineup every single night, but they're being patient, and I think it's worked really well, and Leo Carlson's game is going to be better off for it. Something we see happen a lot with rookies, it's called the rookie wall, where, a rookie will start off really hot, but then they'll go, ice cold for a month or two because they're just not really used to playing such an intense schedule. But with what the Ducks are doing, easing Leo Carlson into things, taking the load management approach, it makes it so Leo Carlson is probably going to be able to avoid hitting that rookie wall this season because he hasn't been asked to do too much. Like I said, can't argue with results, and the results for Leo Carlson have been fantastic so far. Moving along now to the next question. This one comes from Thomas Pat Stone, who says, with World Juniors on the docket soon, who are some NHL draft prospects you look forward to seeing? I'm so excited for the World Juniors. One of my favorite times every year. World Junior hockey is just some of the most electric hockey you're going to see throughout a year. As a Red Wings fan, really looking forward to seeing Nate Danielson, who should play a pretty big role for Team Canada. Macklin Celebrini, obviously another guy, the odds-on favorite to be the first overall draft pick in 2024. A couple of defensemen I'm really looking forward to seeing are Lane Hudson and Seamus Casey for Team USA. I think those two guys are two of the most underrated NHL-affiliated prospects today, and having those two guys on the same blue line for this tournament is going to be scary for other teams. So those are just some of the prospects that I'm really looking forward to watching most. Off the top of my head, I could go on and on. There's so much talent in these tournaments every single year. You're really watching the future of the NHL battle it out in a best on best. Really doesn't get any better than that. The next question we have comes from Jacob Krejci, who says, has Pavel Zacha officially escaped the bust territory? He's not a point making machine, but does a little bit of everything well and is incredibly important to the Bruins now that Krejci and Bergeron have retired. I think for sure Zacha has escaped the bust territory, 26 years old, and he's a legit top 6 center at this point. I do think it's fair to say that he was a bust for the New Jersey Devils, as they obviously didn't get much out of him. 4-6 overall draft pick, he was never really able to get going. They then made the trade to send him to the Boston Bruins for Eric Haula, and that's one of those trades at the time I didn't think much of it. I didn't think it was going to be a trade that would have much consequence one way or the other. But looking back at that Eric Haula for Pavel Zacha trade now, that may be one of the bigger steals of the last 5 to 6 years. This next trade comes from Hockey Fan, who says, we've seen coaching changes in Edmonton and Minnesota, and early on both changes have resulted in better results. So why do teams get better results and improve their play when a new coach is brought in? Is it the team starting to realize that they need to improve their play, or does the coach have an impact on the improved results? I feel like it almost always happens whenever there's a coaching change. The team, at least early on shows better results, because I feel like it's a wake-up call for the players that they do need to play better, and if they don't, maybe I'm next is kind of what they could be thinking. And obviously in some cases coaches get fired because they lost the room, or the team just kind of outgrew the coach and there isn't really much else the coach can do for that particular team. I kind of find it difficult to give my thoughts on coaching changes and stuff, because so much of what happens with a coach and his team is behind closed doors. It's stuff we don't see. You can judge a coach a lot by the systems that he implements that we see in games and stuff like that, but when it comes to a coach, I feel like the more important aspect of their job is in the locker room behind closed doors, and not really them standing on the bench. And now for the final question of this episode, this one comes from Hugh Barkhurst, who says, with Zadorov no longer being an option, who could the Leafs target to upgrade their defense? Staying in Calgary, I think Chris Tanev would be a viable option. Tanev is in the final year of his contract and carries a cap hit of $4.5 million. He is a legit top 4 right shot defenseman. He's somebody who sort of flies under the radar, doesn't really play that exciting of a brand of hockey. You're not going to see too many, highlight reel clips of Chris Tanev on X and stuff like that. I can't believe I just called it X, but yeah, overall Chris Tanev, really steady two-way top 4 defenseman, capable of eating big minutes, getting the matchups against the opposing team's top players. I think he would be a beautiful fit in Toronto if they could make that work. So if I'm the Leafs, I would probably have Chris Tanev at the top of my list of trade targets. Bit expensive at $4.5 million, but I think they could make it work. Salary retention, third team involved, stuff like that. So that is going to wrap up this week's episode of the Ask Me Anything series. Like I mentioned at the beginning, as always, huge thank you to every single one of you who took the time to come up with a question and leave it on the post. Even the ones that don't get featured in the video, just know I read every single one, and I appreciate all of you guys. You guys make this series so much fun for me to do. If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to hit the like button. It does help out the video a lot. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.